Hi everyone, thank you for purchasing your take-home kit from our workshops. This is our first take-home kit. We're doing the apple orchard arrangement. This is going to be kind of just on the spot, and this is our first time doing this, so please bear with us as we're still kind of working out the wrinkles of everything. So like I said, we're doing the apple orchard arrangement today. Your take-home kit will come in a bag, and you'll have your bouquet of flowers. Included in your bag is all the supplies you'll need. So you'll have your container, of course the apples, the floral foam that we use to put in the container to stabilize the stems in, and then we've got some flower food for the water to soak the foam, and then just some mechanics. We have some wire to help stick the apples into the foam. So what we are going to do to start, you will need items from your household. So I have my clippers here. These are just garden shears. If you have a pair, fantastic. Otherwise, a regular pair of scissors works just fine. And then you need a container to soak your foam in. And we'll go a little bit into kind of the details about that and the correct way to do it. So that is what we're going to start with. We are going to start with our packet of floral foam. In my bowl here, I have hot water, and hot water is going to help dissolve the floral food here. So what you're going to do is just tear it open and dump it right into your bowl, container, Tupperware, whatever you're using. And you'll just throw that right away, and it's already starting to dissolve. Sometimes if the water's not hot enough, you might need to mix it a little bit, but I see it's dissolving quite nicely here. So you'll take your foam. This is a third of a brick of foam, so this is only partial piece. So you'll notice it's been cut already, pre-made to fit the container. So all you're going to do is just plop it right in the bowl. You don't want to dunk it in the water. You don't want to fully submerge it. You just want to let it naturally on its own take up the water. If you dunk it in the water, fully submerge it, you're going to get air bubbles in your foam, and those air pockets are going to dry out your stems, and they're going to start to wilt a whole lot quicker. So by doing it this way, it's fully soaking up into the foam, making sure that there's no air pockets in there. So it's just going to be a little while while it waits and does its thing. So in the meantime, what we're going to do is start prepping our apples. I picked these apples from my apple tree, kind of playing into the authenticity of the apple orchard arrangement. So you'll have your wires here. To do this, you can kind of decide which side of the apple you want to be out in your arrangement. They're going to sit kind of nestled into your container. So you just kind of have to decide, which side do I like the best? You'll take one wire and poke it in, and you'll take another wire and poke that in. Having two wires helps stabilize the apple in the container. If we just had one wire, it would tend to kind of spin around and move. I'll do the other one here. I don't really like this side, so I want the nice red side to be out. So I'm going to put my wire in on the bottom and the back of the apple, like so. If you have a pair of wire cutters, great. I just use my garden shears because they're strong enough, and I'm just gonna snip those wires a little bit shorter because these wires are too long to stick to the bottom of our container, and the apples would be sticking up and it wouldn't be as visually pleasing. So I'm just gonna trim those a little bit shorter. The foam is still soaking. I'm going to add a little bit more water into my container here, just to kind of speed up the soaking process there. And I'm just adding water to the bowl. I'm not pouring it over the top of the foam because I don't want to create any air pockets. So I'm going to add some water there, fill it up full so it can finish soaking. Throw away my little pieces here. And while that finishes, I'm going to grab my bouquet of flowers. Now, if you want to save the paper, craft paper is nice to reuse. I'm just gonna cut the sticker here And, you know, if the paper's in nice enough condition, I can reuse it. We're all about reusing and recycling here. Take that. I'm just gonna set that to the side. And here are our gorgeous flowers. So in the kit here, we have our leather leaf greens. This is going to be our base in the arrangement. It's going to kind of help hide the mechanics of the foam. I have an accent greenery. Let's see here. This is Grevillea. It's very popular in fall arrangements. It has some really cool texture, some really cool burgundy color to it. Love using this in fall arrangements. And then I'm gonna go into kind of our focals for this arrangement. So we have a gorgeous red rose. This variety is called Freedom. A deep red. The petals kind of look a little velvety. I love using Freedom roses. Next, I have bright orange marigolds. These are locally grown. Love supporting local flower farmers. They do such great work. We have a sedum. This is autumn joy sedum. So this is fairly common in perennial gardens. You might even have some at home that you can harvest and use in your arrangement if you wanted to add more. This was also locally grown from our local farmer grower. And then we have some zinnias. I grew these myself in my garden this year. Fantastic summer long into early fall stem, continuous bloom. Love zinnias. And then we have a snapdragon. Everyone loves snapdragons. This one's a really dark burgundy color, so it's going to add some moodiness and some depth into the arrangement. And then I have a Safari Sunset leucadendron. That is a mouthful, leucadendron. But this is another kind of decorative greenery that we like using in our arrangements. I believe it's actually in the Protea family, so very tropical, but just the coloring of it makes it fantastic to use in fall arrangements. So we have this gorgeous amaranthus. This is a golden color. Typically you see these kind of hanging down and drooping. It's very popular in wedding work recently, especially the bright greens. This one is still pretty upright though. This was just harvested from our local grower. So it still has quite a bit of structure to it. And we're going to play into kind of the start of the hanging and then also the structured part of it. And then lastly, we have our filler flower. This is some tinted solidago. Solidago is really common around here. You might know it as goldenrod. It fills the ditches here in Iowa. You know, people's allergies go crazy when it starts blooming. Flora solidago, I have really bad allergies and I've never had a problem with Flora solidago. So I don't believe you have anything to worry about if you do have really strong allergies. This has been tinted kind of a dark burgundy color, so it's not that bright yellow. As it blooms open, you'll start to see that yellow, but the stems and foliage and the buds are dark red, and that is a fantastic fall color and texture to use in your arrangements. So now we have all of our flowers here. Oh, and I forgot to mention, we threw in some dried wheatgrass just for some fun texture. All right, so we're gonna start with our arrangement here. So we'll grab our container. The container has a plastic liner in it, so you don't have to worry about water seeping out and it not holding any water. So we'll take our soaked foam here, and it'll already be cut to fit your container. So all you have to do is just plop it in. And it will probably sit a little bit above your container, and that's how you want it to be. You don't want it to be so far down in your container that when you stick your stems in, they're all sticking straight up and out, because you just can't get that angle when you stick your stems into the foam. So to start today, we're going to start with our base greenery, leather leaf. That is the fern looking greenery. And with leather leaf, we are not going to use the whole stem. We are going to piece it apart into sections, more size appropriate to the container. So I'm just going to cut it into some smaller pieces, and I'm going to stick it in my container. I'm going to start by creating what I call a skirt. And this skirt is going to help hide the mechanical look of the foam. That way you're not seeing that bright green foam peeking through your flowers and your greenery. So you'll just start by taking pieces and sections and sticking it in the foam. And you want to make sure that it's far enough in the foam that it's not going to fall out. Say you move it from your table, or you know, you're gifting it to a friend and things start falling out in the car ride. You want to make sure that those stems and leaves and things are far enough in the foam that things are not just going to fall out. So once I have my skirt, I'm going to start with some larger pieces and kind of build up the top a little bit, just to get a nice round shape. And I take those small pieces, like say at the end of the stem, and just work them around, kind of creating different levels. Like so. And I'm going to spin it here so I can see the front and see where I'm missing spots and missing greenery. So here's my greened in container. We aren't totally done because we're going to add in that decorative green of the grevillea, but this just adds a nice base layer, kind of establishes the shape of the arrangement, and helps hide the mechanics. So I'm going to go in with my grevillea next, and that's that really showy fall foliage that I mentioned earlier. And we're just going to take little pieces and kind of just poke them in just for some texture. Now what I'm going to do with this arrangement is kind of give it a unique shape. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to establish where I want the front to be. And I think I want the front to be where this handle is. And by doing that, that allows me to give my arrangement a unique shape. And so what I'm going to do is do kind of like an oblong shape versus like that classic perfectly round arrangement that you're used to getting from the florist, you know, say for birthday, anniversary. We're gonna step outside tradition here for a moment. So I have my longer pieces sticking out on the side. That's establishing the shape that I want. I'm going to take smaller pieces of my grevillea and just add in, you know, say I have a section of foam that's still peeking out that I need to cover up and hide. And I did in the front, so that, and then I'm going to put this one here just to kind of fill in and add some texture. Next, I'm going to go in with my apples. I'm going to go in with my apples because I want to make sure that these get in first before my flowers start going in, and then I have no room or no space to put them in. So I'll spin this back around. I just need to see the front here for a moment. I'm going to add in an apple. When I pushed it in, I did have a wire poke out the top. That is totally fine. Just push that wire back in. Let's see here. I'm going to put him right here. I'll poke him down a little further though. If you need to pull it out and reposition, that is totally fine. The wire is thin enough that it's not going to degrade the structure of the foam by pulling it out and putting it back in. We don't recommend to do that with flowers, just because by pulling out of the foam and putting back in, it kind of breaks down the foam, so it doesn't want to hold as strong. Okay, so this is what I did with my apples. I put one kind of up into the side, and then I actually have this one hanging down as if it were, you know, still on the branch, in like a little cluster of apples, how they kind of hang down. So that is what I'm starting with here. So first I'm going to go in with my sedum because my sedum's pretty large. And this is another one besides like the base greens of the leather leaf. It's going to add some nice structure and base to the arrangement. I'm noticing on mine, I have one big head and then I have one little piece down here that's kind of on its own. I'm just gonna snip that little piece off. And I'll probably do one more here. And that's gonna make this piece a little bit more manageable to stick into the arrangement. I'm gonna cut him fairly short because we're gonna tuck him in to the arrangement. We're not gonna have him sticking out way too far. So I'm gonna tuck him in like that. And then these little pieces that I cut off, I'm gonna add those to the back, just to add some balance. Like so. And I chose the colors that we have today just based on like the different shades of apples that you see, you know, between Honeycrisp, the deep red, the dark burgundy colors, just some nice natural apple variety colors. So then, sorry, I need to spin this to the front so I can see. So I think what I'm going to do now is kind of play off of the structure that I've established with the grevillea, how I want it to be longer versus that perfectly round arrangement. And so to do that, I think what I'm going to do is work with my snapdragon and my leucadendron. So with my snapdragon, what I'm going to do is cut it still fairly long. It's a line flower, so it's going to be long. And then I'm going to tuck him in to the side like that. And then same thing with my leucadendron. I'm going to keep it somewhat long, and I'm going to tuck it in just behind my big sedum right here. And what that's going to do is kind of help establish that long shape that I'm after. So then, next I'm going to go in with my main focal. And this is going to be a 360 arrangement. So being I have my apples in the front, what I'm going to do is add some focal to the back. So I'm going to put my red rose right here. I'm going to stick it in pretty far because I want it to kind of look like an apple in the back. And then next I'm going to go in with my marigolds. This is going to be my intermediate flower. It's not large like a focal rose, but it's still decently large. So what I'm going to do is add balance to my arrangement. So when I spin this around, I see that I have a pretty big hole right here. And so I'm going to use these to fill that hole, but then I think what I'm going to do is use these to kind of establish this unique shape just a little bit more. So I'm going to take the smaller of the marigold and I'm going to tuck him right up front. And then this larger one, what I'm going to do is tuck him next to my apple, kind of coming out to the side like that. And then on the marigolds, we have all these fun buds and things. This one's just coming into bloom. I'm going to take advantage of those and use them. Cut those. I think this one I'm going to stick out to the side over here just to establish the shape some more. This one, I think what I'm going to do is tuck it up front by that big marigold. Like so. And then I pretty much used all the blooms and buds off of my marigold stem, but if you have more, please use more. And you can add them wherever you feel like, you know, it needs shaping, it needs color balance. You just want some of that fern leaf type texture on the marigold stems, just to add some focal and different textures. Feel free to do so. So next I'm going to go in with my zinnias. I'm going to cut these not super short, but also not super long. I do want them to kind of stick out some, but not too far. So I added that one into the back, kind of up top. And then this one, being these are locally grown, you might have some bug holes in your leaves. Just pick off those leaves. They are just fine. Okay, and then this one I'm going to add in the front, kind of protruding out. I love zinnias because they kind of stick out and forward of everything. So here we are with that. And then I'm gonna go in with my amaranthus. So I'm gonna section this off. What I'm going to do is cut the hanging portion of my amaranthus. I'm gonna pick off some of the material off of the stem, so I do have a little bit of a stem exposed to stick into the foam. And I need to take a peek here and see where I want to add this. I think what I want to do is add it up front below my sedum, just to kind of balance the hanging that I have going on with the apple. And then we're gonna piece some more. These are really large amaranthus stems, so you can get a lot out of these. I'm gonna add some into the back just to add some filler, kind of fill the holes that I have back there. This piece is large, so I could probably just use this on its own. What I'm going to do is add this one right here next to my snapdragon. And what that's going to do is kind of create a line from this amaranthus to this amaranthus. And it's also going to help fill this space so it's not just this lonely snapdragon that's sticking out. And then these little pieces that I have, I'm just going to tuck them in by my apples, just to add some filler and texture. So there is with the amaranthus. And then lastly is, well, for fresh flowers, lastly is our solidago. These are really full stems. So same thing, we're gonna section it down and use pieces individually. So I'm just gonna take the top piece here. I'm gonna pick off a branch and some leaves just so it goes into the foam a bit nicer. And I'm gonna go through my arrangement and see where I need filler. The bottom pieces of this stem, I would suggest using them individually. I don't want to cut the stem and use this piece. You absolutely can. I don't prefer doing this because to me, this doesn't have a natural look to it. It doesn't have its plume point that it comes to. You can definitely tell that this was a section of something. So I like using the pieces individually and arranging them into the foam to look like a plume, like that top piece that I used. So I just picked those off and I'm gonna go through and just add these in individually wherever I need a little bit of color, wherever some depth needs to be created. If I have two similar colors sitting right next to each other, I need to kind of separate that out. This is a perfect time to do that. And what I mean by that is I have this orange zinnia and this orange marigold. I'm gonna put a little filler flower right here just to kind of separate those two colors. Monochrome arrangements are really popular. But for this arrangement, just for the sake of balance, I want to make sure that we aren't color blocking. Okay, maybe a little piece right here in the front. And there's really no rule to where you add filler flower. It's just kind of wherever you see a need and fill a need. It's a motto I love living by. See a need, fill a need. There. Just gonna add a few pieces to the back now. And like I said, I mean, we can have recipes for arrangements, but as far as like instruction on placement, you kind of just have to keep in mind balance, shape, and like your materials that you've used. So I wanted to have kind of like a natural theme going on here, even though like the red rose right now, that's not very natural. Roses aren't necessarily blooming anymore. But I liked the idea of the red rose because it looks like a red apple. So just doing one last spin here, seeing what I'm missing, stepping back, looking at the shape. You know, do I need to trim anything out? I'm trimming out a piece of greenery right now because I feel like it's covering up my apple. And I'm actually going to adjust this one piece of filler here because I felt like it was hanging over my apple. There we go, much better. All right, so this is what we have. Finally, we're gonna add in our dried wheatgrass. And this is one where there's a few different options that you could do. You could do a grouping, kind of just coming straight out the top. You could play into the shape of the arrangement more and having them come out to the side, or you can just sprinkle them throughout, whatever you decide. I'm gonna look at the front here and kind of decide what I wanna do. I think I'm just gonna sprinkle them throughout. I don't think, you know, the shape needs established anymore. I think that's good. And I'm just going to add texture where I want texture, essentially. Stepping back, taking a look. And I think my arrangement is complete. I like mixing what's in bloom right now with you know, stems that we had to get from a specific grower. But I also really like mixing the natural textures of fall. So we had the dry wheatgrass, we had the golden amaranthus, the solidago, but most importantly, the apples. I love adding unique texture into my arrangements that just kind of set it apart from other arrangements, or like a bouquet that you can get from, you know, say Hy-Vee or the grocery store. So this was our apple orchard arrangement workshop as the take-home kit. Please reach out if you have any questions. Like I said, this is the first time we're doing the take-home kits. So if you have any suggestions as far as, did I miss something? Do you have questions? Because I have done this for a while. So sometimes I don't think to, oh, well, someone as a beginner has a question about this. So please let me know if you have any comments, suggestions, questions. I want to perfect this for you guys. And like I said, this is the first time, so there are going to be some wrinkles in the process. But thank you so much for watching and participating in our take-home kit of the Apple Orchard Workshop.